Hi everyone. Today we're joined by Mike Corey, who is the star of Kick the Grind TV. And thank you very much, Mike, for joining us today.
It is my pleasure.
Mike, could you give us a quick background about yourself and how you came to start Kick the Grind TV?
Yeah, well, my beginnings weren't always as a traveler. I'm from Canada, and here we have lots of forest, lots of outdoor space, and a lot of us play outside a lot when we're kids. Especially my parents. We have 4 kids in my family. They forced us outside, and they really encouraged us to be curious, and that's how it all started for me. So there's all these stories of me being put into sports like baseball and spending my entire time as a kid catching grasshoppers in the outfield and not any baseballs at all. So I've always been a kid who's very curious about the natural world. And from there, I decided I wanted to be a biologist, a scientist. So I got into biology and loved it, but didn't really enjoy the classroom setting. Really loved the fieldwork setting. So I pictured my life as a biologist being, well, realizing that there's field work obviously, but a lot of it's lab work too. And I wanted to focus more on the field work aspect of everything. So I started to travel a bit after that. There was an opportunity to help some scientists with their field work in Indonesia, and I just graduated and had a big toss up in my life, which usually happens before you do a big first trip. I had graduation. I had broken up with my girlfriend. I had my grandfather that died. I had a car crash, all like within a few months. So it was a cocktail to do something crazy, and that thing that was crazy was saving all that money and going to Indonesia. There's fireworks now; I can hear them. Anyway, going to Indonesia and on a trip where there was like, I don't know, 30 of us from all over the world, and there was no mirrors. We were on an island, off an island, off an island, 36 hours away from the next biggest city. And we just were real people for about 2 months. And there was no makeup, there was no deodorant, there was no seeing what you looked like. It was just unfiltered humanity, and fell in love with travel that way. And so came back to Canada, and I thought that is there a crazy way that I can make this be my life? And I couldn't figure it out to begin with, but I continued to travel. I had the loop, which I was working in Canada and then spending all my money traveling, then coming back and being broke and working and just doing that over and over and over again. And
can definitely relate to that process.
Yeah, and long story short, eventually I found myself with a quite a bad infection on my foot that put me on a couch for months and months and months, and had a friend who dared me to make a video for a travel competition. I said, no, I don't do that stuff. He said, what are you going to do, stay on a couch for 4 more months? And that drove me crazy, the idea of doing that. So again, at a point in my life where I decided to do something crazy because I was so pent up, and made a video. Wasn't easy, wasn't a natural at it. And then I ended up doing well in the competition, and then entered a bunch more, and then fast forward to where I am now, and I'm a travel photographer, videographer, host, a bunch of stuff all mashed together. But I can make a living out of it now too. So long story, but that's the synopsis.
Yeah. And when you went on your first big trip and you're on that island, it sounds like you had a experience that really changed how you could be living your life, and you wanted to get back on the road and make that happen. What was the big change that you saw between like before you went traveling and then when you were experiencing traveling, the sort of mindset shifts that you had?
Well, I before that I was a competitive fencer, sword fencer. And I was traveling across Canada and across the USA for fencing, and that was a lot of fun. It was always, it was traveling, but it'd be like a conference. You have a day to get ready, then you'd compete, and then you'd have like a day off at the end, but it'd be mostly just taking care of stuff, right? So I got to travel solo a lot for competitions, and my family, we were lucky enough to be able to like have a camper van, and we take they take the kids out, and we go different spots nearby. And we did a family trip to USA, and one to Iceland once when we were really young too. So I had traveled before, but not solo to a place like that, and I had not seen a system of of living that was so drastically different. I mean, you go to Europe, you go to USA, you go to Australia, and yeah, there's definitely differences, but really we live quite comfortably. We have easy access to food. We all share a similar pop culture, so it's not identical. But if something happens with some big bullshit celebrity that people care about, then we hear it. It's how it works. But on that island, we were in isolation from pop culture, from isolation from all outside influence. It was just us, like compressed in this small area. And like I said, all of the fakeness that we all have sometimes, which is, I mean, it sounds so negative, but we all do our hair up nice, and we all wear makeup. Well, maybe not if you're a guy, but we all wear deodorant, and we all dress nice, because that's just what it means to be a productive member of society. And it's not, fakeness is a harsh word for it, but just like all the extra stuff that we do to make ourselves look better or different, whatever we think. But that all went away, and like I said, there was no mirrors, and so being in a small little society, a little subculture of people who were really interested about the natural world, which we were all recent biology graduates, and people who were obviously quite open-minded to be able to travel that far. We all had an epiphany there that we had never had before. Because how often do you have access to that kind of experience where you're there for 2 months, and 2 months, like 60 days, is a long time. It really changes how you think, especially when you don't have all those outside influences. So that was what really solidified my life in a direction that my life to devote it to a direction like that was an experience that really changed how I thought about the world, and how the system that we live in Western societies isn't necessarily the best system. I mean, we have a lot of things we need, but we have a lot of stuff we don't need too. And we have a lot of baggage that gets lumped on our bodies from just being exposed to marketing and celebrity culture and stuff, and pressures on how our lives should be, and how we should act, and wearing 3 necklaces and having a big thick bank account is what's important, and having a nice house with a nice lawn. And sure, that could be important to some people, but really it's not the most important thing out there. And it's really easy to get your mind all clouded up with what is important and what's not important here. And so just a complete purge of that entire idea locked me into this lifestyle. I just felt like I had a moment of clarity that it doesn't have to be that way, because when I was younger, I was never the kid who felt like I felt that I fit in. I always felt like I didn't quite fit in. And when I traveled, I found a culture where I fit in, with people who also maybe didn't feel like they fit in, and then they were searching for something a bit more. It was a bit like the movie The Beach, which I saw around the same time with Leonardo DiCaprio. And it's like a backpacking movie about finding this special beach, or hearing a rumor of this special beach somewhere in off Thailand or Southeast Asia. And that movie, in conjunction with that trip, really changed my life.
Nice, nice. Yeah, I've definitely found that travel is like an equalizer type thing. Like when you go traveling, nobody knows who you are, what type of person you were before. So if you wanted to, find yourself or reinvent yourself, it's great to do on the road, because you're constantly exposed to all these different cultures and different types of people and how they live their lives, and you can really get, a really good broad glimpse of how the world works, in different ways.
100%. And that's part of the reason I love it as well, is that there's always the opportunity to flip the page and start a new chapter all the time when you travel. And I feel like, for anyway, in my world, and I'm sure there's people out there who agree with me, that's what I need to be happy. Even if I lead a great life. I really love what I do. I love the people in my life, but I still need to have those experiences like that experience to keep me motivated and happy and feel like I'm growing. And my biggest fear is becoming stagnant, I guess, and falling in a rut that I can't get out of. So I always have to push myself to try new things, or switch up where I am, or just do a 180 on exactly what I'm doing professionally. not 180. I mean, there's
Yeah.
photography, hosting, videography, all these things. As soon as I feel like I'm getting too stuck on one, I can switch over and work on more photography or more hosting. And that's where I found myself now happy, is being able to switch that exact trajectory every few months or every year, so I can stay fresh. But I think a lot of us travelers really enjoy the fact that every new opportunity, if we want to seize it, can be an opportunity to reinvent ourselves.
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely. I've found that once you start traveling and you get on the road, it just you get that travel bug. Like you see all the different things that is great about travel, and you want to experience more, and you want to see more, and you want to do more. But the hardest thing is just getting on the road in the first place. Especially if you haven't traveled before, it's hard to explain the benefits of travel to someone who hasn't experienced it.
Mm-hmm.
What would you say is some good advice for people who haven't traveled but they want to get on the road, but they're not quite sure how to go about it, like the first steps to sort of go from their day job life where they're not really saving any money to getting on the road and getting that travel bug?
Yeah, well, there's a couple of hurdles. The first one is just having the drive to be able to want to do it to begin with, because a lot of people will say that it's dangerous and that it's not obviously it's not safe, and that you can't just go someplace. Like, where are you going to stay? You're not going with anybody. And I can't take credit for saying this, and I'll paraphrase, but basically, the people who are telling you not to go haven't done it themselves. Everyone saying you don't go hasn't done it themselves, because you talk to someone who has done solo travel before, and they'll say it's one of the best things I've done in my entire life. That's what they always say. I've never heard anybody say anything other than that who has done solo travel. So, and also, if you try to talk to people about it, the people who will advocate solo travel, they're not going to be kicking around a town, and that was a big thing, and that's something that I realized too. Is these people that understand what it's really like are out traveling. They're not kicking around and working 9 to 5. Or maybe they could be, but they bounce around a lot. So it's hard to find these people because they're doing it already. So again, it's hard to find motivation. But a lot of them aren't easily found in your hometown, because they bounce through a lot just for a little bit to make some money or just to see family.
Yeah.
But if that's dealt with, the biggest thing then is overcoming the financial hurdle. But the biggest financial hurdle is just a flight. And one strategy that I've used is starting a separate bank account and just start funneling a little bit of money whenever you have some extra. So you pay for your bills, you go out with friends a couple nights, whatever, and you say like, oh, I can probably take $100 on my bank account, throw it in this other account, and that'll be fine. I can still get by for next month. Start doing that, and once that number starts to become significant, then it'll become a motivating factor. And for me, I started saving more. I was like, wow, like I already have $400 in there. That's almost like the flight, not too far, but almost a one-way flight, right? And then you start thinking about saving and how fast you can get it there, and maybe won't go party 2 nights a week with your friends. You'll not go, or maybe once, and not drink as much because you want to put some more money away. But just starting that first bank account is really important, because it makes it real. And the bigger the number gets, the more real the dream will get. And that's the problem with dreams sometimes, is that there's not obtainable steps along the way to be able to achieve them. So a lot of dreams get lost because we're like, oh, I want to learn German before I die. And then, okay, that's great, but what are you... like, what's going to help get you there? Where, knowing like, I want to learn the numbers 1 through 10 in German next week, that's a more obtainable goal, right? Like, you have to have small little things that you can act on in a week or in a couple weeks. So starting that bank account is a really great first step.
Yeah. Right.
For me personally, one of the best things... Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah. Oh, I was just going to say, like, you've hit on so many great points. Like, I've definitely about, you want to take advice about travel from people who have traveled. So it's the same with sort of any area. Like, if you want health advice, you don't take it from someone who looks very unhealthy, or relationship advice from someone who's got bad relationships. So when you want travel advice and you want to know what it's about, yeah, you definitely want to seek that out. And as you said, the great thing about this day and age is that there's so many YouTube channels and travel blogs and things popping up all the time, and you can get online and access all of this really great free information, about any type of travel that you want to do, or any sticking point that you might have that is holding you back from travel, like saving or traveling alone or budget travel. That I highly recommend people get online and look at that. And also, yeah, about the starting the bank account, that's also really good, because once you start putting a little bit aside, then you start getting momentum. So, you start putting, so much aside per week, and then you look at it a couple of weeks and you're like, oh, wow, there's a little bit more there. And then you start putting in, your extra cash, like, maybe you get some tax back, or maybe you get, a little windfall here or there. And it just starts building up, and then it starts to snowball, because then you start to really get excited and you're like, oh man, I could totally go, like I could go in, a couple of months at this rate, and you start getting excited and you're looking up different flights and things like that. And
Yeah.
and you can get there, a lot faster than you think, but you just have to take the first step and,
Hmm.
create that bank account, and maybe set up an automatic transaction every paycheck that goes into there.
Definitely, and something that we're told when we're younger, and we always seem to forget about it, is that you can really do anything you want. Most of us, being born in the countries that we are, can do a lot of things. There's people who aren't born as fortunate, that have family requirements when they're younger, or maybe they don't have access to even a job. But if you can have access to a job and some independence, it's amazing what you can accomplish. We're told we can do anything by a lot of our moms say that, and really it took a while for me to realize that you can really do anything you want. And what I mean by that is, if you really set your mind to something and you spend all the extra time you have, instead of watching TV or whatever it's going to be, to working towards a goal, whether it be travel, whether it be inventing a new microwave, it doesn't really matter exactly what it is, but anybody with passion can achieve what they want to do. And that's a very powerful idea to have. It might not take you, it might take you a week, it might take you a month, it might take you a year, but if you really want to do something in life, you are very much able to do it. So, and travel is extremely accessible. It's just paying for that initial flight. That is the big hurdle. And there's even ways around that, by opening travel credit cards where you get reward points and putting all your purchases on that card, and that racks up. And often they have bonuses when you first sign up, of like 20,000 or 40,000 points, and that's almost a flight in itself. So
Yeah.
that's a fantastic first way to subsidize the cost of that flight. And you get to go to anywhere like South America, Central America, Southeast Asia, South Asia, all these places you can get by, or even Eastern Europe, get by really cheaply, and it's just getting over there that's the problem. But just that's something that I took me a while to realize again, is that if you have a dream and a passion, and you have the idea that you have to do this before you grow up or you grow old, you really, really can. But you have to watch that you don't get caught in the big river of time. You've got promotions in your job, and you find a cool girl, and then everything just seems to work out pretty well. But are you going to be happy with all the choices you made when you're 40, 50, 60, 70? And really, things can be snuffed out at any point. And that's something you really have to deal with and think about. And maybe I think about these things too much. And maybe that's why I've decided to make some pretty drastic decisions in my 20s so far. But I just felt that if there's a time to be able to achieve these dreams and these ideas, the time is now. The time is this fuzzy period where we're supposed to figure things out. And there's not saying if you're 35 or you're 45, it's not possible. It is. I know tens of people personally that are making it very, very at those ages. But everything's easier when you're younger, and why would you wait? Because you don't even know if you have that time. You
Yeah.
know, you don't know if you don't even know if you'll have the opportunity after tomorrow or after tonight. It could be, there could be family problems, there could be personal problems, health related or otherwise, and it could just make everything much more complicated. So if you have time now and you have dreams and passions now, then take the necessary steps to bring them to life, because they might not happen. And can you deal with that if they don't? And
Yeah, that's
that's the
definitely
question for.
a very important question to ask.
Mm,
I've usually only regretted decisions that actions that I haven't made. Like once I've taken action on something, I've always found a benefit from doing that. It's only stuff that said, oh, no, I won't take that risk. And then I'm like, oh, I regret it. Oh, what if I did? And, something could have worked out. So yeah, it's definitely important to take action on your dreams, and especially, yeah, in your 20s and stuff. Like when you've got less responsibilities, you can be very free to go out traveling and to make mistakes and make corrections and figure out what you want to do. And so the things like you know falling behind on your career, or doing extra study at university or different things like that, they're always still available when you come back from any travels, if you choose to come back from your travels. Like you shouldn't be afraid of falling behind the rat race, so to speak, when you're going out traveling and traveling long term. Which I found, like when I talk to people, that's a bit of a fear that a few people have, is they want to have a plan of, I want to go to university and then get out of that, have a good job, get a house and make good money, and then maybe after I've got that sort of sorted, then I can go out traveling and have some free time to just discover what I want to do. So yeah.
and I mean that path is perfectly fine. However, if we're having this conversation now, and anybody stumbling across this conversation probably isn't fine with that, because they're out looking for other information or other options. And there's nothing wrong if you feel it's the right path to do that. I mean, it's all to your own.
Yeah.
I mean, for me, I had that. I went to university right after I graduated, and it went well. I didn't exactly feel like it was the right fit for me. I had never thought about traveling right after high school, but I didn't feel like the path that I was so fixed on was the right path, and that was being a biologist. But I mean, that was just me. That's how I felt, and so that's the question you have to understand, is if it doesn't feel right or comfortable, or maybe if you're like, it's not maybe not be the right decision, then it's not the right decision. Because if something is the right decision, you'll say hell yeah, and you won't even know. I mean, that's how life works. If something you feel is perfect, then you'll be like, this is it, and you won't even ask any questions in your head. It'll just be what you do. But if you start asking questions, then you have to really start to think about whether it is the right thing to do. And not often there is potentially a better option if you just follow your heart a bit more, or take some time to understand what your heart really wants. And then at that point, follow the fear, which is something I saw on the helmet of a skydiver a few years ago when I was going for, like, it was my birthday, I think, about 3 years ago, and there was a guy there who had follow the fear, a decal on the side of his helmet.
That's
And
great.
that was very appropriate for me, because something that I realized about 4 years ago is, and I was watching actually a skydiving documentary because I was interested. I was watched this thing by a guy named Jeb Corliss, who is a famous, like, squirrel suit skydiver. And I was on a plane, and it was something about some deep woods hike to find this ark in the middle of the jungle in China. And he was interviewed, and a few other skydivers who were going to go, like, try to squirrel suit through this ark. And they were talking about fear. And you think these guys who do these extreme sports are, like, just totally iron-hearted, guys who are just completely inhuman, don't feel emotion, and just, like, are mechanical, emotionless beasts that just do these crazy things and don't have the normal set of feelings like a human does. but they were all saying, "Oh, dude, I am terrified. Anything can happen tomorrow. I'm shaking." But what I've learned to understand is that uh, that doesn't have to make me fail. It doesn't have to be a scary feeling. It's just what I love. I've associated that feeling, the feeling of fear that we are all terrified of, being scared of fear, and it just ramps it up and up. It's just to associate that with success or with personal growth, and not so much with failure or danger. I mean, there's obviously danger, but some of the not some of a lot of the most powerful things in life, and a lot of the things that will instill the most personal growth, are scary things, very scary things. Might not be dangerous things, but like public speaking or whatever else you're scared of, going on a solo trip. Those are powerful, powerful choices you can make. And so seeing these skydivers talk about how they're terrified every single jump when they leave the airplane really changed my perception on the things that hold you back in life, which is often fear. And that is what holds you back from living a life that you want, that the life that you're dreaming of. Mm-hmm.
And like travel is such a good way to, lean into that fear, because, you're thrown out in different environments that you don't understand, with maybe you don't know the language and you've got to find your hostel, or you got to, deal with these different situations that come up. So it's, it's a really sort of efficient way to get past your comfort zone.
And that's something that is extremely contagious, is once you break through that feeling of being like, oh, I don't know if I can do this, and then doing it, and then realizing how you've changed, that's an addictive feeling. And often you'll continue to chase that feeling, trying to get that feeling back of just breaking that personal barrier and achieving things that were dreams at one point in your life, just wishes and wisps of ideas that you can actually achieve these things and do these things. And and once you achieve the first one, it doesn't make the list of things any shorter. It just makes it longer.
One really big thing that people always ask about when I talk about travel and traveling the world is how to fund it. How to fund that lifestyle if they want to, live abroad for months, at a time, or if they just want to do, some longer traveling trips. How have you found, like when you've been traveling around, you've talked to different travelers, what have you found has been the way people fund their travel through the different travelers you've seen? And also maybe what are some tips to develop that lifestyle for yourself of funding, your travels?
I would say the majority of travelers just save up before they go and then blow all their money and stop. And then once you do that a few times, like, wow, I can probably do this a bit more efficiently. And then you keep track of your money and don't drink as much usually, and that helps get you a bit farther. There's people who I feel there's like shoestring, backpacking, cheapsy stuff, and I vibe with that. But at the same time, if you're traveling, you don't want to pass up the opportunity to bungee jump if you've never bungee jumped before, or go on that cool volcano hike, because really you're not there to prove how little you can spend. You're there for new experiences. So I mean, there's certain things like accommodation and food where you can save a lot of money, but for experiences, I have a hard time saving money doing that kind of stuff. But yeah, so different ways that you can continue to fuel your travel as you're going. Obviously, there's sort of what I do, which is the blogging. I do mostly film or video and photography, and there's two levels of that. So when you're first starting out, it's not too hard to get free accommodation and free activities in exchange for content. It's not too bad. It might be changing a bit now because there's lots more people doing it. But there's always space for people who are, again, passionate, upbeat, who get the travel scene, who also make good content. There's always space for that. And then there's obviously getting paid on top of that, which is a bit of a different level. It takes a bit more years. But definitely being able to subsidize the the accommodations and some of the activities, with being able to exchange that with content, isn't very tough at all. If you don't want to go so deep into tech, which not a lot of us do with the travel stuff, then you can always volunteer. You can always get little odd jobs along the way. Like I don't have very much experience with this, but you can work on organic farms. You can work at coffee shops. There's all kinds of opportunities to work overseas or volunteer overseas even, to carry the costs over onto someone else's back, to keeping you afloat for a bit longer. And like I was saying, the biggest thing is just a flight, because obviously it's a big expensive cost. But once you're there, there's a lot of resources that you can use to be able to travel and do so cheaply. Like obviously, couch surfing is one that I am a huge advocate of. On top of just using it as a resource to find free accommodation, you get amazing contacts by staying with these people. Even then, if you don't want to stay with these people, there's amazing communities and message boards and groups on the website itself. So let's say for whatever reason you don't want to couch surf. That's fine, but still go on the website, check out the message boards, and find like the weekly couch surfing house party that happens in Panama City, or the Sunday morning bird walk in San Jose that happens every Sunday morning. Like these are actually organized activities. You can go and meet people between 20, 30 or so that are open-minded travelers, and they're just there to see the city.
Yeah, no, it's definitely true. And like with couch surfing, it's and all those different group activities, it's really great to meet people if you are traveling alone, or if you don't know anyone in the places you're going, and you want to know what the local scene is like, or you want to meet some local people. That's definitely a great opportunity to do that. And yeah, like also I've found, you can find jobs on the road. You can work, like you can do like online things, like online business, either for, your job or something back home that you can do online, and you can just report, like, over the net, your different things you have to put in, or create your own online income through, different things, whether it's, doing YouTube videos on the road, or doing reviews for different, travel related things, or creating like information products, or things of that matter to sell or to work online, like freelancing, things like that. Mm-hmm. So yes, there's definitely a lot of options out there for anyone who wants to sort of research what might fit the lifestyle they want to develop, and then research what options there are to be able to travel around the world while you're still having money come in. For sure.
Yeah, and also people need to realize that everybody doing these jobs on the road, whether it be blogging or graphic design or website building, video making, photography, I'm going to say 80% of us didn't go to school for this.
Yeah.
We just went online. We learned from YouTube. We learned for me, there's a site called lynda.com that you pay like $24 a month or something, and you have unlimited access to just so many tutorials. There's ways to get the programs you need, and you just do it, and you learn along the way, and make some crappy things, and then make some great things, and then you get paid. And so don't think that you have to go to school for. I mean, sure, you can do that too, but if you didn't, you don't have to think about signing up for graphic design college if you want to do make logos professionally. You can just start and dig around and learn some things on YouTube, and then practice, and yeah, that's how it works. That's how a lot of us do it.
That's it. Awesome. Well, thank you, Mike, very much for making the time to talk to us today. If someone wanted to get in contact with you or check out more of your stuff, where can they go to find that information?
Yeah, I would say my main platform would be YouTube, and you can type in Mike Corey, and you'll find me, and you'll find some professional MMA wrestler guy, but mostly I think my name will pop up first. But my alias is Kick the Grind, so KickTheGrind, and that is what it is on everything: Twitter, Instagram, all that stuff.
Awesome. And if anyone wants to find more of my information, it's at Perlin's Adventure blog on YouTube and Instagram and, you know, all of those social media platforms as well. So awesome. Thank you very much, Mike.
Oh, thank you. That was fun.
All right, guys. Until next time. Bye.